Happy New Year! It's a new year and a new you. And guess what? This is the best time to prepare yourself to attract the love of your life. Did you know that historically the new year is when the online dating apps get flooded with new people? And since we are just coming out of the 2020 year and we've been in quarantine, last year in the last half of 2020, we also received a huge surge of individuals getting online because we are isolated and alone. Therefore, in order to find companionship, in order to find love, more people have been joining the online dating world. So today we're going to focus on discussing how to become emotionally available and what are the best 2021 intentions in order to start attracting real and lasting love in your life. And welcome to Passion Unlimited podcast. I am your host, psychotherapist and author, and the founder of Fearless Love, Jianny Adamo. And we are in season 4, where I have been covering topics in my Amazon bestseller, From Love Trauma to Fearless Love, in order to help you to get to a place that you can survive, recover, and thrive in love, life, and relationships. For those of you who have been following me, I've been very grateful to the reviews that so many of you are leaving on my book. I'm also excited about the reviews that I'm receiving from the professional magazine. From Love Trauma to Fearless Love is now a Kirkus Review recommended book. And I personally received a call from them telling me last year in December that the book actually ranked in the 30 percentile for the books they reviewed in 2020. So that is something, that's a bit of an accomplishment. Kirkus Reviews is one of the most prestigious reviewing organizations in our country. They are out of New York City and have been around since the 1930s. So for those of you who are reading the book, who are listening to the audiobook, please leave me a review. I would highly appreciate it. All right, so let's get on with our episode today. And I want to address a question that I received recently. And the question is, I am open to dating. Why do I keep attracting guys that are only interested in sex when I want something deeper? This is such an amazing question. I love this question. I do, because I'm also single and I've also been dating. So I understand that there's a lot of individuals out there that are not looking for a deep, meaningful, committed relationship. They're actually just looking for shallow, casual dating. And so, yeah, we have to actually rise above that, or else we get very frustrated very quickly with the dating scene. Okay, so the situation is that there is a deeper issue for individuals who are just like looking for the sex and the hookups. Obviously, they're not ready for a meaningful, committed relationship. But most of all, a lot of these individuals have another issue that's bigger than that. And that would be that they're emotionally unavailable. And these are things that you can actually figure out quickly so you don't waste your time with someone who's emotionally unavailable, who's only interested in sex, even if they're saying in their profiles or verbally that they're looking for long-term relationships or a long-term relationship. Okay, so let's define this. Emotionally unavailability. So what is it? If you are emotionally unavailable, what does that mean? So being emotionally unavailable means that someone like yourself or myself is deeply struggles with allowing themselves, with truly at the end of the day, being open to love. There is this fear of intimacy and of love, of trusting others and allowing themselves to be known at a deeper level, at that soul level. These individuals also miss the cues in others when the others are open for authentic connection. And there's nothing more frustrating, I gotta highlight that, than when you are open for an authentic connection with another human being and you're sitting across a date, whether you're married to them or this is your first date, and this person is like frozen, because that's part of the problem when people are truly emotionally unavailable, or they're kind of frozen in their emotions. They probably just feel anger and frustration. Those are the two usually the emotions that emotionally unavailable people can actually feel. They feel anger and frustration. Anything other than that, they're frozen and they're kind of solid and you can't penetrate them. Okay, so first I want to talk to you about making sure that you are prepared to attract the love of your life, which means you need to do the work of being emotionally available. For those of us who have been through a trauma, we need to do the work of healing our trauma, because while we are stuck in our trauma, that trauma itself can cause us to be frozen and emotionally unavailable for others. We're only seeing our own pain. Same thing if you are dealing with addictions. If you're dealing with addiction, that's just classic. You're running away from yourself, you're running away from your emotions. So therefore, you're not emotionally available. And anyone who has unexpressed grief is also sometimes frozen. Sometimes you can be frozen in the anger side for losing someone, or you could be frozen in the depression side. So you could be depressed most of the times, therefore you're not emotionally available. You cannot connect with someone when they're happy and joyful. You're so far away from that world, and you're like in this gray, ominous place, this hopelessness place. So when we are dealing with depression, with trauma or addiction, if that is you, please know that in 2021, your priority is to become emotionally available by getting yourself into therapy or finding yourself a health coach, some sort of like wellness coach who can work with you, or preferably a mental health specialist who is licensed to work with you in this issue, in these areas, in order to become available. All right, so emotional availability then is being able to sit with difficult, upsetting, or challenging emotions, both within yourself and in others. You do not run away, you do not dismiss or attempt to minimize them. It's also being present to the joys and happiness of others as well as yourself. I know there are a lot of wonderful human beings out there with beautiful hearts, but you're not even present to your own joys in life. So if you don't start celebrating your own little victories in life, how are you truly going to be present and not miss the little joys and little victories other people are having? So it's a two-way street. You got to be able to be emotionally attuned to yourself, and then you can be emotionally attuned to others. So emotional availability is also about sharing yourself with someone over time. Okay, so some of us go out on dates and we're looking to click immediately, and that sometimes happens, but there are times that you don't click with that person immediately. So it takes time to truly develop an authentic connection, okay? So if you are dating, you want to take your time to understand this person, to get to know them, and figuring out if they're truly emotionally available to you. So being emotionally available also means being reachable. It's both the ability to feel deeply, and as well as to communicate those deep feelings with others without feeling ashamed, or just just like you're a big burden to somebody by sharing this. So not having those feelings, and or moving through those feelings and still sharing in spite of how you're feeling. So part of the work that needs to get done is not just getting into therapy or maybe working with a coach, but it's really opening yourself and allowing yourself to be vulnerable. So maybe, again, another intention for 2020 is allowing yourself to become more vulnerable. And that means getting uncomfortable with behaviors and with your own behaviors, with your own history and your own experiences. That also means growing comfortable and sitting with difficult emotions, as well as with yourself, as well as sitting with difficult emotions with other people, and not having to quickly trying to, shift the direction of the conversation, because that happens all the time. Even in my own family, I see it. somebody's upset or crying, and immediately somebody shifts the conversation over to something more pleasant. Well, sometimes we just need to sit with that person and allow that person to cry. And you just don't say anything, you just listen. Being vulnerable means embracing the messy parts of ourselves and embracing the messy parts of other people that we cannot fix. And this is part of why we want to go shift the conversation so quickly, because we feel powerless and helpless and being able to fix whatever's going on with them. And many times you don't have the power to fix another human being. They have the power to fix themselves and go seek solutions to fix themselves, but you can't fix them. So you just, what you can offer though is a shoulder to cry on. You can have, you present your time and your energy to be present with them, and you don't have to say a word. You basically, again, embrace their messy parts without having to fix them. Another fantastic intention for 2020 is to embrace, 2021. I'm still stuck in the old decade, the old year back there. 2021 is to embrace a growth mindset. So that means if you have difficulties being vulnerable, if you have difficulties being emotionally available, or you're attracting all of these people that are emotionally unavailable, again, look at yourself, because a lot of times we are attracting things that we need to deal with within our own selves. And just because we're also on a healing journey, it's part of how the brain feels like it needs to master things. It attracts you to things that you still need to understand and label correctly. So when you go out on dates and when you meet people who are emotionally unavailable, you can actually unpack and be like, okay, this person is not vulnerable. I can address that with them and see if they're willing to change, if they're willing to be open. And if they're not, then you move on. You have a conversation and see what they do with it. Okay, let's move on to our next question. All right, our next question. I don't believe in having New Year's resolutions, and I am ready to give up on love. What kind of advice can you give someone like myself? And I feel your pain. I totally feel your pain there. After a while being on the dating scene, I know it gets disheartening, because especially when you're healing and you're sensitive and these individuals are just triggering you left and right because they are, they're emotionally unavailable. So they're emotionally unintelligent. They don't know how to sometimes treat you as a human being or as a lady. In fact, sometimes I've seen like these guys treat you like a buddy, as if you're another man. And like, we're ladies, we are not men. So we like to be treated in certain ways that feel very more dignified or respectful to us. And sometimes that doesn't happen. So putting ourselves out there in the dating scene can hurt us a lot. So I'm going to ask you, once again, to first deal with being emotionally available and understanding that well. And then give yourself the opportunity to set sound intentions for yourself for 2021. Every year in January, I start, and in fact, this week, because it's the first week of the year, I start with just about all of my clients and I ask them, what are your intentions for the new year? And the good news about that is I write all that stuff down for them. And usually if they're with me at the end of the year, we will review how they did with their New Year's resolutions. And the majority of my clients, if they're still with me, because some of them are just short term, obviously, but the ones who are long term, who come in once a month to maintain what they've worked with me on, most of the times they've accomplished over 50% of their New Year's resolution. And there's so much victory in that when you recognize, like, hey, I set this up as my intention for 2021 or whatever year you want to discuss. And then you look back and you're like, wow, I did accomplish half of those, and then, or maybe more than half of those. And then the ones that you didn't accomplish, you can actually revise and put them into your intentions for the following year. So I actually want to tell you how I go into making New Year's resolutions. And hopefully that will be inspiring to you. And then maybe you can set up your own. The first thing I do with my clients is that I look at New Year's resolutions holistically. And I always encourage you to set up resolutions for you, both physically, mentally, emotionally, relationally, and spiritual. It is important to address all of these facets of our lives and to be healthy and fit in these aspects of our life. So I want to share with you one of my clients, what she already has set up for 2021. And she's one of my long-term clients. She has done these New Year's resolutions with me year after year. She comes in only like once a month because she's been with me long enough. And she asks for these even before I even ask at this point, because she's so successful in getting these accomplished. So this year she's had some physical illnesses that she's had to deal with for the last couple of years. And this year she's putting this on her intentions that she is definitely going to get her hormones balanced. She's already been dealing with different doctors trying to figure out what's going on with her hormones because she's still too young to be dealing with hormone problems. So anyway, so she put that this year in her intentions that she will get her hormones balanced. She will lose 10 pounds, and she's giving herself 6 months to lose the 10 pounds because she's got hormones issues. So for those of you who have health issues, give yourself some slack, okay? Especially if you need to lose some of the 10, 20 extra pounds that most people have gained over this, 2020 quarantine stuff. So in her physical intentions and goals for 2021, she is planning to eat healthy with low fat diet and no dairy. That's one of the ways she's going to accomplish that. Also with her physical goals, she's put on there that she is going to learn some survival skills, such as self-defense classes and surviving in the woods. She's a nature girl, and being that she is single, she loves being outdoors, but she doesn't know how to defend herself if there is, maybe a bear or a snake in her surroundings. Like, what should she do? So she's going to take classes in order to make sure that she is safe while she is doing her hikes and her canoeing and whatever else, she wants to be doing outdoors. For her relationship goals and her relational goals, she is setting stronger boundaries around her social media and devices. And she's saying no to a lot of, being time suck with your social media and devices. And she's saying yes to more face-to-face time with her loved ones in order to generate more of a sense of belonging and connectedness. So for those of you who are feeling very lonely coming out of the holiday season, we're still in this coronavirus quarantine. So you're feeling lonely and disconnected. That's because we're missing that intimate connection and being emotionally available for that. So this is why I started out with emotional availability, because in order to feel that closeness and the connection, you've got to be emotionally available for that. And then you find other people who are emotionally available. And the good news is that the majority of the people are. We have a handful of people who are not, but the majority are always ready and willing to be available for an emotional connection. So that's the beauty about being human beings. Okay, so she's cutting out time with her social media and devices in order to make more face-to-face time. So that means maybe one-on-one coffee times with with a friend or a loved one. All right, another one of her relationship goals and her relational goals is, again, she's single and dating, does not have a significant other. So she is creating time to volunteer. For this year, for 2021 specifically, she wants to be part of a medical missions, to go out with a medical team and go do some fantastic work in helping people who are not well, who need medical attention. She is also planning to join a martial arts gym and to connect with a community of like-minded people. And that martial arts gym is going to work twofold, obviously, to have a community of like-minded people, plus also her physical goals, which she wants to be able to learn how to survive and self-defense. So all of the martial arts stuff is going to contribute to that as well, in addition to additional classes that she wants to take to survive out in the wilderness. Then she's got her spiritual goals. Okay, so her spiritual goals, she's planning to find quiet times 3 times a week where she makes her specialty teas and she reads scripture. And that's like basically she's carving out some quiet times for herself. And that's her spiritual goal. Then we have her mental and emotional goals, which is to work out, to have a work and life balance by being able to say no to working after 5 p.m. and being able to stop the people pleasing with her family. This individual has a corporate job. So for those of you who are corporate, we all get it. Like you have work piled up on top of you. And so normally she would be working till 6 o'clock at night, but she doesn't need to be working till 6 o'clock at night. You know, she's technically supposed to be there till 5. So she's put a boundary that she's only working till 5. This individual also had the opportunity last year, and her intentions, it was to repair the relationship with her family, and she did that. She was so thrilled. That was one of the biggest accomplishments she had of 2020, and she celebrated that big time. And so now she just wants to make sure that she's not people pleasing and that she's not acting out of guilt, and that she has a good balance with them as well now that they're back in her life again. All right, so that's part of an example of the setting your intentions and goals for 2021. Some additional things that I would want to give you on setting intentions. Maybe you can set up an intention about being a better time manager. And that also means you're going to probably bark at this one, but being a better time manager does not mean multitasking. Oh, so many of you are going a little batty and crazy because you can't stop the multitasking. And then when you're multitasking, it actually can lead to memory problems. You don't know where you left off your keys because you were on the phone trying to get some water from the refrigerator and had the keys in your hands and put it somewhere. And at the end of the day, ended up like in a cupboard with like the cereal box or something. You can't do that to yourself. Stop the multitasking. Being a better time manager does not involve multitasking. So multitasking increases your anxiety and stress and depression. So it's always better to focus on one thing at a time. Unless you're in a state of crisis and emergency and you have to act quickly and you got to do multiple things, great. Then you do what you got to do to survive. But if you're not in a crisis, and most of us are usually not in a crisis, one thing at a time. So 2021, one thing at a time helps you to become a better time manager. I also want you to consider to make time for things that you want this year and say goodbye to the things that no longer serve you, because that's going to open up more availability on your calendar. Maybe a goal for you in 2021 is to embrace and become more curious. Maybe that you can embrace that by going someplace you've never been before. Maybe you can do something that scares you. Or maybe how about just talk less and listen more? All of that embraces a spirit of curiosity that helps to expand who you are, and it also allows you to become a more interesting person in a relationship. Another area that I would encourage you to focus on or want to embrace in 2021 is to choose love over fear. Last year, I did a 40-day challenge of choosing love over fear. So you know what? This is the beginning of the year, and I'm going to give you a 40-day challenge. And this is January 4th. So add 40 days for the 4th. I'm not really sure what that is because I've just thought about it right now that you probably need a 40-day challenge. You know, when you're listening to this program, actually, you may not be listening to it on the 4th or the 6th when I actually release this. But when you listen to this and you get encouraged by this, maybe you could start your own 40-day challenge of choosing love over fear. What happened was last year when we went into quarantine, by the middle of June, it was getting a little gloomy because we all thought the quarantine was going to be like a month long. And then it's like, no, it's going to be another month and another month and another month. And then just another month. So obviously it becomes a little crazy. And so in June, I took a 40-day challenge of choosing love over fear. And what I decided to do that every single day, every day, I would provide a compliment to someone, including myself if I didn't have someone to give a compliment to. So being that we were completely in isolation and, not going out other than to the supermarket, and maybe taking a walk outside for those of us who didn't have to be quarantined totally indoors. Because I know, like in Europe, they needed they still do. They need a receipt for them to step outside of their door and go outside. For us, we don't. It's not so bad for us here. So, anyways, I decided that every single day I was going to provide a compliment every single day to someone. And if I didn't have someone to compliment, then I would compliment myself. Okay. So it works both ways. But so every day for 40 days, you compliment someone. The other thing I decided I would do with choosing love over fear is I would do random acts of kindness throughout that 40 days. And again, if I didn't have someone to do that random act of kindness, then I would do that for myself. I remember I did go to one of my friends' home, and this is South Florida, so we are very friendly here with all the bugs because we've got bugs everywhere. So I noticed that my friend had a little bit. It was June, so there was like little ants on her counters, and I have a ton of really good ant traps. Like, it really gets rid of the problem. And so when I saw that, the next time I saw her, I gave her the gift of getting all her little ants eliminated from her counters. So it's something as silly and simple as that represents something beautiful to another human being. Okay, another thing that you can choose in reference to choosing love over fear is perhaps maybe volunteering so that you can contribute to the life of others. You can also choose to impact the life of another human being. So last year, because of the impact this quarantine has had on me and the fact that I have missed having, being more connected to family and friends, I decided to actually, I don't have the information here near me, to sponsor a child out in Bangladesh, which I kind of said a few things about that in my last episode for the New Year's Eve episode. But that was driven by my need to love and contribute to the life of another person. So over these 40 days, you can choose to volunteer, perhaps, from a place that supports the homeless to a place that supports the foster care system in your community. Consider loving on somebody else and people who are less fortunate than yourself, because that's going to give you so much joy to help another human being. Another item that you can consider when you choose love over fear is writing down one thing every night before you go to bed that you are grateful for. Okay, this was very transformational for me. And as I concluded my 40 days of choosing love over fear, it was like I had entered a season of increase. I entered a season of abundance because I was no longer operating from fear, but from love. I ended up going away for 2 weeks to this beautiful lake house in South Carolina. Right at the end of this, like, all these opportunities just opened up for me. They just opened up without me doing too much work. I just felt it in my intuition that this was my next thing, and the opportunities just arrived. I basically was able to receive what I was already feeling in my heart. So when you take the time to really be mindful and take the time to choose love over fear, this is transformational. So let's start out 2021 in a place of attracting love over fear and being transformed in an ability that we can live in a place of love and abundance. Thank you so much for listening and being part of my Passion Unlimited podcast. Leave me your reviews, leave me your comments, subscribe to Passion Unlimited podcast on the Facebook group page. If you can, and if you want to read my book, please order it on Amazon. And you can listen to the audiobook through Audible and iTunes and through Amazon. And for those of you who want to watch me on YouTube, I am under Fearless Love. And you can find me. And if you want a free 15-minute consultation, whether you are married, divorcing, dating, engaged, want premarital counseling, have been involved with a narcissist or healing, whatever the situation is, if it's mental health, or, love and relationship related, I am your girl. Please feel free to find me at fearlesslove.net, and you can click on the free 15-minute consultation. Until next time.